So they're really sad. They're like, Uncle Freddie's dying. And I go, really? She goes, yeah, the doctors can't figure out what's going on. I'm like, wow, where does Uncle Freddie live? So like, well, he lives with us. I'm like, Uncle Freddie lives with you? I didn't even know this guy? You guys have been here for years? They're like, yeah. And they're looking at me kind of surprised. I'm like, well, where is he now? She goes, out in the car. I'm like, oh my God, Uncle Freddie's dying in the car and you're in here? Like, go get him. And they all like perk up and they're like, really? I go, yeah. So they're like totally excited. They jump up and they run out the door. And then they come back up and Uncle Freddie's a freaking iguana. Uncle Freddie's an iguana. And I'm like going, oh, well.
Welcome to the Miracle Academy. This is your host, Scotty Cooper, and this is where miracles are expected. Hi, this is Scotty Cooper with the Miracle Academy. So this podcast, I'm going to be talking with Dr. Ken Cooper, my father. So he and I, we run Cooperstown Chiropractic in Southern California. With our relationship, he is the visionary, so he's the one that sees kind of the big picture of our company, whereas I'm going to be the integrator. So I'm the one that takes all of this and makes it into something we can actually do. So that's our relationship. He and I are super close. Basically, when he talks, I know the next thing he's going to say. So he's going to ask me something, and I already know I already know what he's going to ask me. So that's kind of our relationship. We're really close. It's really fun to be able to work with my dad, and I really enjoy it. So
me too.
Here we've made things different. Yep. And when someone thinks of chiropractic, what you're going to see here is not the same thing. So it's going to be different. So why don't we start? What do you think some of the big things that makes us different than anywhere else?
Okay, the most significant thing, and it's not just chiropractic, it's about any kind of healthcare, is that most people come to healthcare or come in with a healthcare concern based in a fear and a fear-based mentality. And you'll recognize this even when you go to your own doctor and the doctor goes, well, Mrs. Jones, what I'm afraid of is, and as soon as they use that word afraid, that means that it's fear.
Right.
And so rather than being in a fear-based mentality, we go exactly the opposite of that. And it's the faith-based mentality.
Yeah.
The faith that your body was designed to heal itself. That the power that made your body is what heals the body.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yesterday I was sharing this with a lady, and we were talking about that innate intelligence that's within you, that gift, you call it the soul, you can call it, the spirit. And most people, I think, understand it, spiritually, but most people don't understand it physically. But physically, that power gives your brain this just incredible wisdom called an innate intelligence. But to really dial it in, if you took a sperm, you took an egg, and you give them the chance to union, then you put them inside for 9 months so they can cook, right? They go from those two cells to this child that's born that's 15 trillion.
Yeah.
2 to 15 trillion in 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so the reality of that is if you and I went to Vegas with $2, we ended up with 15 trillion. They would name one side of the strip after you and the other side after your old man. Right?
That's funny.
But the thing is, when that child's born, everything's coordinated.
Yeah.
Right? Eyeballs go here, ears go here. You don't get a kid with an eyeball coming up here. Right. I mean, there's genetic differences, but that's clear. But the reality is, everything works in coordination with everything else. That's the power that made the body. That's the power that remakes the body. Just can't be interfered with.
Right.
So the difference between a fear-based mentality and a faith-based mentality is understanding and being able to grab hold of that your body was always given this opportunity. We just have to make sure that there's nothing interfering with it.
Right.
That's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
We identify what is interfering with that process. Once we fix that process, then the body's going to want to go through its ability to heal. And so we know we got to feed it.
Right.
And we got to make it fit.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to find all those things that are putting it at risk, all those stressors the body doesn't adapt to. And that's really kind of the core of what we do differently.
Yeah. So I think what's important with that too is like, I feel like people want to know, okay, I get that and I love that, but why do you do what you do? So what would you say to that when someone says, okay, what's the why behind everything?
Well, for me, it was always pain to purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always something that I suffered with, or one of you guys. I mean, so I got my chiropractic degree, but I went back to school when you and your siblings were young, because I just found that medical pediatrics were kind of inept. Mm-hmm. And I mean, outside of an emergency situation, I mean, they're phenomenal there. Right. But after that, they're just not. They're not healthcare. They're trying to apply a crisis to health. When you take a crisis type of care and you apply it to health, you end up with crisis care, right? That's exactly what you got. And so those things don't mix. So I went back to school and got my pediatric degree because there wasn't anybody that I trusted that could do what I did, that could understand the way I understand things, that were going to better suit you and your siblings better than me. And then that's why, when you see the practice, I don't know, what do you think? What do you think the percentage of pediatrics are in the practice currently?
It's a lot. I mean, especially yesterday, there were a ton of kids here.
Yeah. So I had a newborn adjusted yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. She was really cute.
Yeah. And it's pretty amazing too. Like, if you ever get the opportunity to watch a newborn get adjusted, and what it feels like is if you can take your finger and push on your eye, about the amount of pressure you can push on your eye without hurting, that's the pressure that I'm using.
Right.
And again, the why. Everything that we do, we come back to why.
Right.
So why did that mom bring the baby in? And the reality is that there's been multiple worldwide studies done on SIDS.
Right.
Like every, parent's nightmare. And in every one of those, well, actually most of them say what is due to is trauma during the spine or in the spine during the birthing process.
Right.
And the reality is that I'm the one that's trained to undo that.
Right.
Right. And so, just simply that peace of mind, that safety that will happen as a result. That's exactly why we do that.
Right. I really enjoy our purpose here. Like, a purpose of our business is to serve God by serving and saving mankind through the gift of chiropractic.
Right.
So how did that come about? Like, was that also like a pain to purpose, do you feel? Or how did you kind of come up with,
well,
before I got here, you'd already kind of had that. And I loved it. And that's part of why I wanted to join the team originally, was that I felt like I identified with that.
Right.
And
can I go back and tell that story? So you graduated from college and you said, I really want to work for a smaller business and really expand them and make them big and just, get them onto like a big format.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, why don't you interview with us? And you're like, well, I don't know. And then I asked you again, why don't you interview with me? I'm like, I don't know. And so finally I'm like, dude, why don't you just come? You're going on all these interviews. Why don't you interview with me? And you're like, because Dad, I want to get paid. You think I'm not going to pay you?
Well, I think what was funny too with that was like, there were things that I had always seen that needed to be improved, but I never knew I was going to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
And I knew it was like, the vision was correct. And like, the doctor part was correct, but there were other pieces that needed to be filled in.
Yeah.
And I think that from that became just this great thing that we have now, is that we complement each other with that.
Yeah.
And it's a lot smoother now.
Right.
And that's part of what, made me want to work really hard too, because like, there's so many of these kids that come out of school and they might be a great doctor, but they don't know anything about running a business.
And they don't even know what they don't even know.
Right. And so part of why I worked really hard was that I could help guide those people so that they don't have to make the mistakes or have to learn the way you had to learn. Because you had to learn by like trial by fire. You like had to figure out like, okay, that doesn't work after the fact.
Right.
Versus I could teach someone, okay, this is the way we want to do this, guide them from the beginning and make them much more successful.
Right.
And I think that's one of the cool things, because like I'd say my personal purpose is to connect people to their true self.
Yeah.
And I get to do that with practice members on a daily basis, which is really fun. But then doing that with like a college kid that's like, okay, I'm not sure what I want to do yet, and then showing them chiropractic and giving them this vision of what could happen.
Right.
And that is really fun for me, I feel like. And I think it's cool that we've made that environment that they can come in, shadow, understand that, and then go to school, come back, and be an amazing doctor.
So, I mean, in that whole context of thought, there's a lot of data and research that talks about how things evolve and change. And the biggest one to understand, that everybody can understand, is a smartphone.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years ago, there wasn't such a thing as a smartphone.
Right.
Before that, there was barely cell phones.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody even thought about like carrying a phone with them where they go.
Right.
Right? And then cell phones came out. And then as soon as the cell phones evolved to like a smartphone, then all of a sudden everybody's got a smartphone. And so what happens is you have to get a certain percentage of the population, the early adopters,
right,
to do something. But as soon as they do that, everybody else in the world is going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with chiropractic. And that's what I particularly see right now, is that people are looking for a different way. This is a perfect time for people to understand how the nervous system and the immune system, where we used to think they were separate, and now we know or we used to think they were gently connected, but now we know they're one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
They're exactly the same thing.
Right.
So when the nervous system is depressed, immunity is depressed.
Right.
When you excite the nervous system, you excite immunity.
Right.
Right. And again, when you see all these miracles that happen here, and all these people with like crazy conditions that have no business getting well, and they still do in a natural means, this is it. But when our society hits that turning peak,
yeah, we
are going to be the ones in front of that.
Right.
We're going to be the ones that are going to need to serve and are serving. And that's really where that purpose came from.
Right.
Is to serve and save mankind.
Right.
Right. And to serve God in doing that.
Right.
And we'll do it very clearly with our gift, which is this natural gift of chiropractic.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you kind of mentioned miracles.
Yeah.
And obviously this is the Miracle Academy.
Woo-hoo.
So let's talk about let's think about, what were some miracles in the last week we had? Oh, we had the lady you told me yesterday with her blood work.
Okay, so this was super cool. So lady came and got adjusted. She was doing her exercise work on the total body vibration. And she goes, "Oh, Dr. Cooper, I want to let you know." She goes, "I just got my blood work back." And I said, "Okay." She goes, "First time ever, nothing off." She goes, "I've never, ever, ever had blood work done where everything was 100% perfect the way it was supposed to."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, baby, high five."
Right. And she'd been anemic for how, I remember doing her consult, and it was I think she even forgot to tell me about it, but I saw it checked off. So I asked her about it, and she said, "Oh, I've had that for years." It was not even a thought in her mind. And then she was super surprised when the doctor said "Oh, it's not there anymore."
Yeah.
So that was cool.
So just some off the top. I mean, actually, I'll give you a couple, but then you can tell me. You can ask me questions like any body part, and then I'll give you a miracle. But two that were funny, just because you mentioned that one about the lady forgetting. There was a lady that was here one time, and she said she was having a particular problem that we were struggling to resolve, and I told her I'm kind of frustrated at the fact that this isn't gone yet. She's like, "Yeah, Dr. Cooper." She goes, "The fact that I can hear out of this ear now, I'm totally patient." I go, "Wait, what do you mean?" She goes, "Oh yeah, I was born without being able to hear. I was deaf on this side." I'm like, "You were deaf on that side?" She goes, "Yeah." And I said, "And what happened?" She goes, "My hearing came back." And I go, "And when were you going to tell me this?" She goes, "Yeah, can you believe I forgot?"
Yeah.
Right? And then we have another lady that brought her sister, and her sister has been deaf on one side of her, one side. I don't even remember it was the same side as this other gal. But as soon as we start putting her into care and stuff, her hearing came back, and she was like 79 years old.
Yeah.
And then we have a very good friend of the practice, a practice member that actually lives up in Berkeley.
Oh, yeah.
And his daughter was horrendously bad, hospitalized, worst headaches ever. But he has a condition that's called retinitis pigmentosa, where the vision just kind of goes out and then he goes blind. He's a professor, but he's blind.
Yeah.
And his daughter has the same condition. And so we were doing some work, some very specific work like we do with the concussion people. And as a matter of fact, her uncle was here,
Right.
and he was helping me do this work. And the dad was sitting back, and this girl couldn't see, like if you had your finger like this,
Yeah.
she couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And this was gone. And if
Right.
it was beyond this, she could see it. But once it got to this point, it was gone. And so as I fixed it, her uncle was sitting there cracking up. He's like telling his blind brother, "You got to see this. This is crazy." Because she's like, "I can see that now."
Yeah.
And we got her vision, like, slowed down the progression of that disease. Who knows how long that's going to maintain that way.
Right.
But and I'm grateful for that. That was really super cool.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
That is cool. So we kind of talked about why.
Yeah.
We talked about purpose.
Yeah.
What is like kind of going along those lines, what's like a goal that you have for patients? When people come in, what's your goal for them?
Well, I have
What do you see?
one goal. My goal is to have a lifetime relationship with every patient and their family
Yeah.
and their tribe
Yeah.
about being well.
That's cool.
That's my goal. My goal is that, they can look through their whole family and they can say, you know what, Auntie's got this, I'm going to send them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my brother's got this, I'm going to send them.
Yeah.
Right? Funny story on that line. Years ago, when you were probably before high school, there was a family that walked in, husband and wife, 2 kids, and they're all really sad, all bummed out. I mean, it was just clear. And then this is not common here. It's a very joyful place. I go, "What's going on?" They're like, "Uncle Freddie's dying." Remember the story?
I knew that. So remember we were talking about, like, I know what he's going to say. Right when he started saying, like the first word he started with this story, I already knew what he was going to say. So just commentary.
All right, there you go. All right, so they're really sad. They're like, "Uncle Freddie's dying." And I go, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, the doctors can't figure out what's going on." Like, "Wow, where does Uncle Freddie live?" So like, "Well, he lives with us." I'm like, "Uncle Freddie lives with you? I didn't even know this guy? You guys have been here for years?" They're like, "Yeah." And they're looking at me kind of surprised. I'm like, "Well, where is he now?" She goes, "Out in the car." I'm like, "Oh my God, Uncle Freddie's dying in the car and you're in here? Like, go get him." And they all like perk up and they're like, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." So they're like totally excited. They jump up and they run out the door. And then they come back up and Uncle Freddie's a freaking iguana. Uncle Freddie's an iguana. And I'm like going, "Oh, well, what am I going to do here?" Well, the thing's got a spine. Let's go check. So I palpated the little spine. And son of a gun, that top little bone that holds the brainstem was really off on one side. So I took the little adjusting tool and I went, "Pew!" And I did a little impulse, and all of a sudden the little iguana went and stuck his tongue out. And
It's a great impersonation.
wouldn't that good? And literally, Uncle Freddie came back to life. And it was funny because for as long as Uncle Freddie was alive, they would have little Christmas cards they would send me with Uncle Freddie and a little Santa hat on. Who has an iguana and names it Uncle Freddie?
Exactly. That's funny.
Yeah, I fixed Uncle Freddie.
Nice. So you're kind of commenting about how, like, in the office, it's a very upbeat, fun place. Yeah. And it was weird when they weren't like that. So, that kind of goes along with, like, our catalyzing statement.
Yeah.
Kind of the place we create.
Yeah.
So why don't you, like, kind of talk
Well,
about
2 things. When you talk about a catalyzing statement, I have to go back to a story that our mentor taught us. and told us, and a true story about pizza parlor that's in New Jersey. And this place was so loved that if you wanted to go, you had to stand in a line, and literally the line went out the door, down the street, and around the block every night.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And like reservations were like, you couldn't get reservations. You had to literally stand in line. And with the success of this place, there was another place that moved in, like on that block. And everybody's like, who the heck would open another pizza parlor on that block? And this was this guy's very first store. But what he did, what was different, is he created a catalyzing statement. Mm-hmm. A catalyzing statement is something that you, your team, your practice members, your population can actually really get around and grab hold of.
Yeah.
And what this guy said was, his catalyzing statement was, we will deliver any pizza, any place, 30 minutes or less. Mm-hmm. You happen to name it Domino's. So where that one place in New Jersey has one amazing restaurant,
and arguably better pizza.
Arguably better pizza, potentially. I mean, I'm imagining that's the case. But Domino's now has 17,000 locations worldwide.
Right.
Right? It's an entirely different mindset.
Right.
So we, as a catalyzing statement, decided to look at what is it we want for every member. Mm-hmm. We want to educate. And we want to inspire. Mm-hmm. So it's one thing to educate, and there's a difference between, well, go ahead. What's the difference between education and to teach and to educate?
Yeah. So to teach would be to more like a lecture, like you put in, where mm-hmm. the education would be more to draw out.
Right.
So think more like Socrates would draw out from the student to get them to truly grasp what's going on.
Right. So we want to educate. So bring it out of them, but then inspire them.
Do something with what they just brought out.
Do something with them. And that's why we live the life, right? You know, like the question for you is like, how many Tylenol have you had in your lifetime?
None.
None. How many?
27.
27 years.
Almost 27.
Not one Tylenol. Right. How many Sudafed? Or how many painkillers have you ever had?
Yeah, I only had one when I had a surgery and I didn't want to take it.
Yeah. He argued with, like literally, I had to go in because he argued with the orthopedic surgeon because the orthopedic surgeon wanted to give him a shot of an antibiotic before he fixed his broken fibula. And he literally argued with him for a half an hour.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, dude, we can just clean up the debris of this, right? But so we want to inspire. So we want to live the life. Yeah. We want to be that example.
Right.
On one of your podcasts, you're going to talk to Coach Coates.
Yeah.
Dude, that's an inspiration.
Yeah. He's right? My next guest.
That's cool. You're going to love that. Yeah, you're going to love that. And listen to what he did to other of our staff members and how they were inspired to do what he's going to do. Yeah. So we educate. We inspire. We create a place here of hope mm-hmm. where those miracles can be expected.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. On the first day back, after we have examined and made certain that a person's problem is something we can resolve, we go over what the bigness of understanding how the body functions and get the function, that innate intelligence. And we're not going to look at disease and we're not going to look at symptoms because it's just an alarm. You know, I can turn the alarm off, but that doesn't change what's happened and made it, right. turn on in the first place. But when we talk about like, what are my jobs? Mm-hmm. Number one is to have fun.
Right.
We have to have fun. Right. That's just the rules. You know, if you're going to have trouble with that, right, then this is probably not the place for you.
Right.
Right. But number one is to have fun. Number two then is to make a correction in the nervous system, what's called an adjustment, to allow it to function appropriately.
Yeah.
Right. Get all those external things under control and be the guide.
Yeah.
Guide that person. Be that accountability partner for that practice member so that they've got that person they can rely on and that team of people that they can rely upon to get through this.
Yeah. So another thing that you and I have talked about a lot too is like our kind of competitive advantage, like what we do really, really well that other people just don't know how to do or don't know much about. And so we've kind of talked about it being hope and how we can we can give them a vision of hope of
Yeah.
like what their life could be like, and then also deliver on that hope.
Right.
Right. And I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying about most people, a lot of doctors focus on the fear side,
Right.
where we're focusing on the faith side, more the hope side,
Right.
more what can we do?
Hope is the anchor of the soul.
Yeah. So, how does that fit with you in your life, do you think? Like with the hope and like how you see things.
Well, it's funny because I do remember years ago somebody scolding me for giving their family members hope over a condition that they thought was hopeless, and it
Yeah.
resolved.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, obviously that went in one ear and out the other. But yeah, hope is one of our core values. Every decision we make is based on a core value. What is important to this organization and what's important to me, to you, to us. And that is hope. And that's faith. And that's passion,
Mm-hmm.
right? A deep love.
Mm-hmm.
But not just passion, compassion,
Mm-hmm.
right? So a lot of people think compassion means like sympathy and empathy. And to a certain degree it does. But whenever you put the letter C-O-M in front of a word
Yeah.
in Latin, it means together,
Yeah.
right? And so when they've got a deep love of being well, and we've got a deep love of being well, we can pull them together. Together we can make this happen.
Right.
You know, that is just one of our core values. Core value of miracles
Right.
and gratitude. I mean, that's also another great word, gratitude. Most people think it means being grateful, and it does, but that's not the total definition.
Yeah.
Gratitude is being grateful for something that hasn't yet happened.
Yeah.
So, as an example of all this, speak on Juliana, whose husband played in the NFL and won that Courage Award.
Right.
And it was such an amazing story that the local LA News came and did a whole news story. But what did you do with her day one that
Right.
changed the whole picture?
Yeah. So on that first day with her, what was so different was when I was doing the consultation, she already had the mindset that this diagnosis for her wasn't going to define her life. She decided that it's like, no, I'm going to be an amazing mom. I'm going to be an amazing person. I'm going to conquer this. Like I didn't even think twice about the diagnosis. It was just like, it's just a label that is not mine.
Right.
And like, she just completely disconnected from that on that first day. And it was really incredible for me because I was like, normally that's part of the thing when we have to kind of talk about is like, you are not your diagnosis, which
Right.
a lot of people struggle with.
They take ownership of that.
Right. They say like
Right.
my headaches,
Right.
or they say
My diabetes.
Right. But the thing is that if it's yours, you can't get rid of it.
Right.
You don't want to get rid of your purse.
Right.
Right. It's exactly the same thing. But she completely disconnected from it before, and it was amazing because she's like, oh yeah, it's just I'm battling that, and I was like, whoa. Normally that's something I have to talk to you about.
Yeah.
But from the beginning, not connected to it, not gonna let it define her, and she beat it.
And what happened 8 weeks later?
Yeah, it was gone.
It was gone, and what her oncologist was blown away.
Yeah.
He'd never seen anything like that before.
Right.
All right, so then let's talk about. Remember Janine and Alberto's friend?
Yeah.
What was her first name?
Yeah, that was Amber.
Amber.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she.
What happened to her? Because physically things happened to her.
Yeah. So she came in because she was battling breast cancer.
Right.
And so one thing we do want to clear up is that we treat a subluxation, right?
Right.
That's when the bone in the neck or spine is out of place and we fix it. But we know that affects so many different things in the body.
Right. You
Right,
can't cut
so
the
we
nerve
don't-
off with the heart.
So we don't treat cancer, but we have people that come to us from around the world, which you'll see on another episode. People that come from all around the world to come see us.
And we're battling that battle.
Right. So this woman came in, she's battling breast cancer, and she told me, like, we were talking about it, and she just kind of said to me, she's like, I'm afraid of this. And I said, well, why are you afraid? Why? She's like, oh, well, my mom died of it, another auntie died of it, so I feel like I'm going to die of it. And keep in mind too, when I'm having this conversation with her, she's kind of like hunched over, looking like this. Her skin just looks like totally pale, just like no color, just
almost green.
Yeah, just like void of life is the best way to describe it. And so I said to her, I explained epigenetics to her and how this doesn't need to define you.
Right.
And she immediately kind of like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, this, just because you have a diagnosis that, and someone else had it doesn't mean that that's you. And she was like, kind of surprised, like no one's ever told her that before. And immediately her color came back. And that was incredible. Like literally her color changed while I was sitting right in front of her. And then when you came in and did your thing, her color changed.
Yeah, her
again.
color, I mean, like in the speed of it.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. That was really fun. Thanks for tuning in to the Miracle Academy. Like this video, comment, interact with us, and watch for future ones.
And I think our ultimate goal is that if you need the miracle, now you know where to come.
Right. So we're at Cooperstown Chiropractic, the Miracle Academy, and this is where miracles are expected. Thank you.